Once upon a time, in a little village nestled between rolling hills and an ancient forest, there lived a shy young girl named Lyra. Lyra was the kind of girl who spoke softly, walked quietly, and spent most of her days with her nose buried in books. Books were her escape, her refuge from the noisy, bustling world around her. But even in her beloved books, she found herself wishing for something more, an adventure of her own, one that might help her find the courage she so often admired in the characters she read about. Lyra's home was a small cottage on the edge of the woods. Her father was a carpenter, her mother a weaver, and though they were kind and loving, they often worried about how shy and reserved their daughter seemed. Lyra, however, found her joy in the forest. It was her sanctuary, a place where she felt free to dream and imagine. The towering trees, with their whispering leaves, felt like old friends, and the soft carpet of moss beneath her feet was as comforting as any hug. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a deep indigo, Lyra decided to take a walk in the forest. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the earthy scent of pine and wildflowers. The moon was rising, full and luminous, casting a silvery glow over the landscape. Lyra often took these evening walks. They were her favorite part of the day, a time when the world seemed quieter and her thoughts clearer. But this night was different. As she wandered deeper into the woods, a faint glow caught her eye. It wasn't the light of fireflies, nor was it the soft luminescence of the moon. It was something else entirely, gentle and inviting, like the flicker of a candle in the distance. Curious, Lyra followed the light, her heart fluttering with both excitement and apprehension. The glow led her to a clearing she had never seen before. In the center stood a magnificent oak tree, its branches sprawling wide and heavy, with leaves that shimmered like silver under the moonlight. At the base of the tree was a door, small, round, and carved with intricate patterns of stars and swirling vines. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. A door in a tree? She had read about such things in stories, but had never imagined she might find one herself. With trembling hands, she reached out and turned the brass handle. The door creaked open, revealing a spiral staircase that seemed to descend into the heart of the earth. The light she had followed spilled out from within, warm and golden. Taking a deep breath, Lyra stepped inside. The air grew cooler as she descended, carrying the faint, musty scent of old paper and ink. When she reached the bottom of the staircase, she found herself standing in the most extraordinary room she had ever seen. It was a library, an enormous, circular space filled with towering bookshelves that stretched up into the shadows above. The shelves were crammed with books of all shapes and sizes, their spines glinting in the golden light of floating lanterns that drifted lazily through the air. At the center of the room was a wooden desk, and perched on it was a large owl with feathers as white as snow and eyes that glowed like amber. The owl turned its head to regard Lyra, and to her astonishment, it spoke. "Well, well," the owl said in a deep, melodic voice. "What have we here? A visitor to the Moonlit Library. It's been a long time since anyone found their way here." Lyra blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. The Moonlit Library?" she stammered. The owl nodded. "Indeed, a place where stories come to life, and where those who seek answers often find them. Tell me, child, what brings you here?" Lyra hesitated. She wasn't sure how to answer. She hadn't been looking for anything in particular, at least not consciously. But deep down, she knew what she wanted. She wanted to feel brave. She wanted to believe in herself. I "I don't know," she said softly. "I just followed the light." The owl tilted its head, its eyes gleaming with a mixture of curiosity and wisdom. "Ah, the light," it murmured. "It only appears to those who need it most. You may not know why you're here, but the library does. Come." With a graceful sweep of its wings, the owl flew across the room to one of the bookshelves. It plucked a book from the shelf with its talons and brought it back to Lyra, dropping it gently into her hands. The cover was embossed with silver letters that shimmered in the light. The Tale of the Brave Sparrow. "This is where we begin," the owl said. "Open the book and let the story guide you." Lyra hesitated, then carefully opened the book. As she did, the words on the pages began to glow, and the room around her dissolved into a swirl of colours and light. She felt herself being pulled into the story, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. When the light faded, she found herself standing in a meadow, the sky above her a brilliant shade of blue. In the distance, she saw a small sparrow perched on a branch, its feathers ruffled by the wind. The sparrow looked at her with bright, intelligent eyes and chirped, "Are you here to help me?" Lyra stood in the sunlit meadow, the gentle breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers. The little sparrow perched on a low branch tilted its head at her and chirped again. "Are you here to help me?" Lyra hesitated, unsure how to respond. I think so," she said tentatively. The sparrow fluttered down to the ground and puffed out its chest. "Then you must hurry. The hawk has stolen my courage and hidden it on the tallest cliff. Without it, I can't fly as high as I'm meant to, and I'll never be able to join my flock in the great sky dance." Lyra blinked in surprise. "Your courage? Stolen?" "Yes," the sparrow exclaimed. "The hawk swooped down and snatched it right out of my heart. Please, will you help me get it back?" Lyra felt a swell of determination. "I'll help you," she said firmly. The sparrow led her through the meadow and into a dense forest. The trees whispered secrets as they passed, and the sunlight filtered through the leaves in golden beams. They climbed rocky paths and crossed a sparkling stream, where Lyra helped the sparrow hop across on the stones. Finally, they reached the base of a towering cliff. High above, a nest of twisted branches clung precariously to the edge, and a shadow circled the sky. "The hawk, I can't go up there," the sparrow said, trembling. "But you can!" Lyra looked up at the daunting cliff. Her palms grew sweaty, and doubt crept into her mind. "What if I fall? What if I fail?" But then she glanced at the sparrow, who looked at her with such trust and hope. Taking a deep breath, she started to climb. The rocks were sharp under her hands, and the wind whipped her hair, but she kept going. Halfway up, she heard a screech, and the hawk swooped down, its golden eyes gleaming. "Why do you climb, little one?" the hawk demanded. "I've come to get the sparrow's courage back," Lyra replied, her voice trembling but steady. The hawk chuckled. "Courage is not something you can take, it must be claimed. If you wish to prove yourself, you must stand your ground and face me." Lyra's heart pounded. The hawk was enormous, its wings stretching wide against the sky. She wanted to run, but she took another deep breath and stood tall. "I'm not afraid of you," she said, even though her legs shook. The hawk regarded her for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, you have earned it." It spread its wings, revealing a glowing golden orb nestled in its feathers. With a flick of its talon, the hawk released the orb, and it floated down to Lyra. When she returned to the sparrow, the little bird chirped with joy as the golden light sank into its chest. "You did it!" the sparrow exclaimed. "You were brave for me and for yourself." As the sparrow took to the sky, flying higher than ever, Lyra felt a warm glow in her own heart. She hadn't just helped the sparrow, she had found her own courage too. The meadow began to shimmer, and the scene dissolved. Lyra was back in the library, the book closed in her hands. The owl perched nearby, watching her with keen eyes. "You did well," it said. "Are you ready for another?" Lyra nodded eagerly. The owl plucked another book from the shelf and dropped it into her hands. The cover depicted a castle shrouded in mist, with ghostly figures wandering its halls. "This one is a little different," the owl said, "but I think you'll find it enlightening." Lyra opened the book, and once again, the world around her dissolved. She found herself standing before a grand, crumbling castle. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the rustle of wind through the trees. As she stepped inside, she felt a chill, as though the walls themselves were watching her. "Who dares enter the kingdom of forgotten voices?" A whispery voice echoed through the halls. Lyra looked around but saw no one. "I'm just visiting," she said hesitantly. "You have come to help," another voice said, this one softer. Ghostly figures began to emerge from the shadows, their forms faint and flickering. They were the spirits of those who had lost their voices, those who had been silenced by fear, doubt, or others' cruelty. "Why have you lost your voices?" Lyra asked. "The Keeper of Shadows stole them," one spirit said, its tone mournful. "It traps our words in jars and keeps them hidden in the deepest part of the castle." Lyra's heart ached for them. "I'll get them back," she promised. The spirits guided her through the castle's winding corridors, where the walls whispered secrets and the floor creaked underfoot. Finally, she reached a grand chamber filled with shelves of glass jars, each glowing faintly with trapped words. The Keeper of Shadows loomed in the corner, a tall, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes. "Leave this place!" it hissed. "I can't," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "I'm here to free the voices you've taken." The Keeper laughed, its form growing larger. "You think you can defeat me, little one?" Lyra clenched her fists. "I may be small, but I won't let fear stop me." She reached for the nearest jar, and as her fingers closed around it, she felt a surge of warmth and light. The jar shattered, and a voice, strong and clear, filled the room. One by one, Lyra freed the voices, and with each jar she broke, the Keeper of Shadows grew weaker until it vanished altogether. The spirits, now restored, thanked her with glowing smiles before disappearing into the light. Lyra's adventures continued, each story teaching her something new: compassion, self-worth, resilience. By the time she finished her final book, she stood taller, her heart brimming with the lessons she had learned. When the owl returned her to the library for the last time, it said, "You've done well, Lyra. You've learned that the greatest stories are the ones we live ourselves. Now, take these lessons into your own life and never stop writing your own tale." And as Lyra walked back to her village under the glowing moon, she felt that she wasn't just a shy girl anymore. She was Lyra, the girl who had faced her fears, found her voice, and discovered her own kind of magic.